Congressman André Carson of Indiana. He's a member of the Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
What a pleasure. Thank you, Wolf.
All right, let's begin with the breaking news. You just heard it here on CNN. The special counsel, Robert Mueller, he's looking at Jared Kushner's financial dealings, including contacts with investors in China and Qatar, for that matter. Is that a subject of interest for the House Intelligence Committee as well?
Well, we've not yet gotten to that point. However, I will say that Mr. Kushner is a businessman, obviously. But I think it's kind of suspicious for Mr. Kushner to have met with this particular Chinese investor a week after Trump's election. So might he be leveraging his position with the administration and with the Trump campaign effort to solidify a business deal? We don't know. Stay tuned.
Some have raised the concerns, as you well know, Congressman, that Kushner's business interests could pose a very serious conflict of interest, especially during his time running the presidential transition. He was deeply involved in that. Is there anything in particular that worries you?
Well, I'm always concerned when you have folks who are in federal positions misusing their authority. I think it's a concern for all of us. Sometimes it happens unknowingly, but I think in this case it could perhaps be deliberate. But we've yet to see. We're going to wait for Director Mueller's investigation and see where the House Intel Committee picks it up from there.
The president is sounding off on Twitter, as you know, in light of last week's indictments by Robert Mueller and his investigators against 13 Russians. He tweeted this. Let me put it up on the screen. Obama was president up to and beyond the 2016 election, so why didn't he do something about Russian meddling? A close quote. He's not only blaming, he's not the only one blaming the Obama administration. There have been others, including some Democrats, who've criticized former President Obama for not taking action against Russia sooner. Did the Obama administration, during its time in office until January 20th, 2017, drop the ball?
Well, I won't say they dropped the ball, but I think more could have been done. I think that the administration was cautious and a bit apprehensive, quite frankly. I think that their efforts could have been more focused and centered and more assertive, but we can't look back and play Monday morning quarterback. I think it's important to look at the now. And I think that the Obama administration will admit themselves that more could have been done. I think President Obama has said it himself. But now we're focused on the Trump administration. And I think that these indictments show very clearly that this isn't a political witch hunt. This indictment is real. It's not about Republican or Democrat. This is good old law enforcement, and law enforcement is working. Unfortunately, we don't have the kind of relationship with Russia to bring those folks to the U.S., but the indictment is clear, and it sends a strong message that we will not tolerate Russian interference into our electoral system.
A lot of people agree with you. The Obama administration could have done more building up to the transition, the inauguration. But remember, the president, he's been in office now for 13 months, and the question remains, what has he done in those 13 months to fight this Russian meddling in the U.S., which clearly continues as we speak right now, looking ahead towards the midterms and 2020. Some of the president's recent tweets, as you know, Congressman, also suggest he feels vindicated by last week's indictments against those 13 Russians for their role in election meddling. The Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, noted that this particular indictment didn't necessarily implicate any Americans for witting involvement in the Russian scheme. In your view, is collusion still an open question?
Without question, I think so. I think that's why we have this wonderful three-pronged approach from both the House and Senate Intel committees and Director Mueller's special counsel effort to get to the bottom of this. And if wrongdoing hasn't occurred, then we can move forward with our lives and continue to work together in a bipartisan fashion to really focus on things that are important, Wolf, like infrastructure, improving our broken economy, rebuilding our education system, and doing things that really works for Americans, all Americans.
The president attacked the FBI on Twitter over the weekend for its failure to stop last week's high school massacre in Florida, blaming them for, quote, spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign, close quote. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the FBI admitted that they could have done more, which I feel was noble for the FBI to admit that kind of thing during these times. But I also think that President Trump has a habit of blaming folks and not taking responsibility. And I think this kind of diversion tactic or red herring is really wearing thinly on the American people. I think now we have to focus on the crux of these recent discoveries, particularly the indictments, and see where we stand. Now is the time to not blame, but stand firmly as a leader. He made a campaign promise to lead our country. He's failing to do so.
Congressman André Carson, thanks so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.